Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Tracy Donegan podcast. And as this kind of a piece on the Irish Times and the Birthzilla was just too long for Instagram, so I figured I would record here and share it with you. So just let me open up this article and let's get started. So, as I mentioned, if you had seen the Instagram post a couple of years ago, there was a conference on maternity services and the law. So, and we know litigation is a huge issue when it comes to obstetrics and midwifery and lawsuits and everything. So everyone's trying to avoid a lawsuit. I get that. But we have to look a little bit further than avoiding lawsuits and actually protecting mothers and babies and providing evidence-based care, aka best practice. So let's just take a quick look at. So Kitty Holland wrote this article, and she interviewed Dr. Aoife Mullally. Now, I will say first off, if Dr. Mullally, I'm sure, is going to get to see this or hear this at some point. If there's anything in this article that is inaccurate, please let me know, because I know only too well how the media can misrepresent opinions and statements. So Kitty Holland published this article in the Irish Times, and some of it I'm going to read through because I just don't want to miss any of the details. So it starts off with an increasing number of overanxious middle-class mothers have unrealistic expectations of having perfect births, a leading obstetrician has said. So Dr. Aoife Mullally, who practices in the Coombe and apparently in Portlaoise, said there was anxiety among women about not having epidurals, C-sections, or being induced, and who were disappointed if they had, despite going home with a healthy baby and healthy themselves. So first of all, we're at this narrative where healthy baby and healthy mom is all that matters. And I'm really not sure if there's a huge amount of numbers of women in Ireland who are asking for epidurals and not getting them. That really doesn't seem to be a problem. Sporadically, I'll hear from women who will say, yeah, my midwife tried to dissuade me from getting one. We'll talk about that on another podcast. But overall, women are not being refused epidurals. They're not being refused C-sections. And they are most certainly not being refused inductions. As I've mentioned in other podcasts, induction rates in some places in Ireland are at over 60% for first-time mothers. So yeah, let's kind of move on. This was an elitist view of how birth should be that judged and controlled women and was unfeminist. So asking for evidence-based care, asking for safe care, asking for midwife-led care is an unfeminist approach. She added, it was as valid a birth whether the mother chose an epidural, a C-section, or a birthing pool. Absolutely agree, 100%. No judgment. I think a positive birth comes in many different forms, and we would like moms to be supported and midwives and obstetricians also to feel engaged and respected as well for their expertise. But come on, let's just look at this now. Women can't get access to the birth pools in Ireland, even though we have many, many units that are coming on board now, putting in pools, but there's so many restrictions around it. You can't get into the pool until you're X amount of centimeters. You can't get into the pool if your BMI is this. And if you refuse a vaginal examination, we won't let you have the pool. So I digress. Let's keep going. So while birth with as little in medical intervention as possible was seen by many as reclaiming birth from a male-dominated medicalized model, she said women who could not or choose not to endure such natural births were by implication judged to have let themselves down, she said. Natural birth is a philosophy that assumes economic security, ready access to medical technology, and the leisure to construct an identity. It is about the mother and how she would like to see herself, not about childbirth and not about babies. So, yeah. Birth plans. Many women's birth plans say, I don't want any unnecessary interventions, said Dr. Mullally, questioning why any doctor or midwife trained to care for women and babies would ever make an unnecessary intervention. Why is this keeps coming up saying, women are these interventions that women are trying to avoid aren't happening. There's no unnecessary interventions happening in Ireland. That's just untrue. It is blatantly false, because I talk to women every day of the week talking about unnecessary interventions. Holles Street, go to Holles Street, try and have a normal birth, and the first thing that happens when you walk in the door is, we need to break your waters, despite there being quite compelling evidence that this as a routine procedure is not recommended for healthy, well women in spontaneous labor, and none of the potential risks to mama baby are ever discussed. So we'll just start there. But this idea of this isn't happening is just delusional, honestly. It's untrue. So again, we're back to speaking at a conference on maternity and the law, attended mainly by people working in maternity services. Dr. Mullally said, now this is where it gets quite interesting. Everyone would know these women because we've all had them. The women who think they're the only woman who's ever given birth, and they certainly think they are the only woman given birth in the labour ward that day. Really? Most women in the Coombe have a birth plan. Very few in Portlaoise have birth plans, and the spontaneous births are higher in Portlaoise. Their expectations are very different, and yet their normal outcomes are better. I have to say, just what I'm hearing from, and again, this is many, many years of speaking to women and advocating for improved maternity services in Ireland. Regional hospitals, there's something going on in regional hospitals, and it's a cultural thing where the doctor is still God. So I think other places have just kind of become a little bit more cynical about this approach, but it's very much still in the Irish psyche in some of the regional units. And yeah, but what can I say about Portlaoise? Putting Portlaoise up there as a centre of excellence, even though I know there are women do have fabulous births there are brilliant midwives there, but again, like, Portlaoise has quite the history, and I don't think it's really the best example to be setting. And for anyone who's not familiar with the Portlaoise history, go and Google it, because it's otherwise I'd have to put a trigger warning on this podcast. So next we move into overpaid staff. So she quotes an American obstetrician, Amy Tudor, and she says, for many women, the birth experience has acquired a similar status to one's wedding day. Now, I agree here with this, because it is actually something that I will talk to women about, to think about how much preparation we tend to put into our wedding day. We're planning it, a year, if not more, out. We're planning every detail. We want to control as much as we can. We want to choose the best hotel. We want to create, a special experience. But what we see here is, for many women, the birth experience has acquired a similar status to one's wedding day. Overprivileged, overanxious middle-class birthzillas harassing well-meaning hospital staff with unrealistic birth plans, all the while egged on by ill-informed, overpaid midwives and doulas. Isn't it possible that women who are writing birth plans, or trying to exert some control over, yes, an experience that we can only control so much, as I always say, control the controllables. Why would we deny a woman the opportunity, the education, the information to really stack the deck in her favor of not having an unexpected cesarean, of having a really healthy, well birth experience for herself and for her baby? So let's look at the outcomes. When women are informed, when they feel engaged, when they feel respected, their birth experience can be very different, and these women have to live with their birth experiences for the rest of their lives. And for some, based on what we've seen in the MAMI trial out of Trinity College, we can see that women aren't getting the postnatal care that they need, and women are suffering years later from the care that they received within our maternity services. But I do love that point about the overpaid midwives. So I wonder what my midwifery colleagues would say about that. She asked, was it feminist to revere effortlessly fertile, blissfully pregnant women who find affirmation in the excruciating? Like, women are avoiding are choosing, if they can, avoid epidurals or pethidine, because it is, the gold medal. They get a medal at the end because they put themselves through this excruciating experience. And for some, it is a challenge. For me personally, having an unmedicated birth at home was a challenge. And it was something that I was motivated to challenge myself to do. That's not for everybody. But I also recognize that there are potential trade offs to medication in labor. So for me, that was also a part. But this idea that women are just finding affirmation in the excruciating, it's just, yeah, come on. And then what feminists should be doing, she argued, was fighting for safe, affordable maternity services for all women worldwide. You can only refuse an epidural when an epidural is available. So this is a really common theme that I see when obstetrics are being challenged, that, oh, well, let's look at the third world. Let's look at other places and let's focus our attention over there instead of the really crap care that a lot of women are experiencing in Ireland and in the US as well. So as feminists, according to Dr. Mullally, we need to change the narrative around maternity care in Ireland. Couldn't agree more. Around fighting for equal access to all services for all women. Oh, I might have just add in there. So if we're fighting for equal access to all service for all women, especially around Ireland, if we're talking about Ireland in this case, well, that should include, providing provision for home birth services in areas that are underserved. So Donegal, West Cork. Maybe we can include that as well. Around improving morale, recruitment and retention. Couldn't agree more. Midwives are really, really struggling right now, as are many, many consultants and medical staff, and supporting healthcare professionals in the aftermath of adverse events. That was a kind of and maybe this was just Kitty Holland's, way of ending the article. I just felt like that, ending it on the aftermath of adverse events, for me felt like, yeah, if you choose to take this, unfeminist approach and make birth preferences and state that you would like evidence-based care, well, if you have an adverse event, well, maybe you contributed to it. That's what I take away from that. And again, we see this in maternity services where it is punitive for women who decide to try and take some ownership of their birth experience. Not everybody is in favor of it, as in not all midwives and not all consultants like women to engage in their care. And that's just a fact. So what do you think? That just brought my blood pressure up to a new high. What did it do for yours?